"Marry me tonight," the billionaire CEO begged. The single dad's one condition broke her. They snickered the moment Marcus Cole walked through the door. Cassandra Holt, standing near the entrance of the Meridian Grand Ballroom with a champagne flute and a smile she had perfected over 20 years of charity galas, leaned toward her husband Derek and said, "Not quietly enough." She brought the handyman. Derek looked over. Marcus stood at the entrance to Weston Capital's annual fundraising gala in what was clearly his best suit, dark navy, well-fitted, but 3 seasons behind what everyone else in the room was wearing. His shoes were clean, but not polished to the mirrored finish that signaled old money. His hands, Derek noticed with a small, satisfied smirk, had the faintest trace of paint under the left thumbnail. "Is that paint?" Derek said. "Acrylic, I think," Cassandra murmured. "Probably from one of their little craft projects." She said little craft projects the way some people say bless his heart, sweet on the surface, a blade underneath. Across the ballroom, Alina Weston was being photographed with the board chairman and his wife, her expression composed in the particular way that meant she wasn't feeling composed at all. She had been working toward this gala for 9 months. The firm was about to announce its largest annual donation, $3.4 million to the children's medical wing. Tonight was about legacy, about leadership, about everything she had built. And she had brought Marcus, the first person she had brought anywhere in 6 years. What Cassandra and Derek didn't know, what neither of them had bothered to find out, because people who decide they already understand something rarely investigate further, was that the man they were calling the handyman had turned down 3 corporate board seats in the past 2 years alone. They didn't know about the $680 million. They didn't know about Tech Peak Solutions, or the Forbes profile, or the call he had received last month from a senator who wanted his counsel. They saw paint under a thumbnail and decided they knew everything. They knew nothing at all. 6 weeks earlier, Alina Weston had woken at 4:45 a.m., as she always did. Not because she was a morning person. She had never been a morning person. She woke at 4:45 because that was the only hour in her day that belonged entirely to herself, before the firm, before the calls from London, before the relentless arithmetic of managing $1 billion in client assets with a team of 67, and a reputation built on 12 years of never being wrong. She had not been wrong in 12 years. She had also, in 12 years, not been on a second date. Not since David Chen had left her conference room with a USB drive containing her 3 largest clients' portfolio details and walked them straight to a competitor. That was the last time she had let anyone close enough to have access to anything that mattered. She'd rebuilt. The clients came back. The firm grew. The walls stayed. Marcus Cole had arrived on a Thursday morning to renovate her 14th floor office suite. She'd approved the contractor hire without reviewing the file. Her CFO handled vendor selections. What she noticed, when she came off a call at 8:20 a.m. and found a man measuring her window frames with a level, was that he had arrived 20 minutes early, had brought his own coffee in a thermos that said absolutely nothing on it, and that when her assistant tried to explain the security check in process, he listened without once looking at his phone. She planned to ignore him. She noticed him instead. Their first real conversation happened by accident, 11 days in. Alana had stayed late, a client call that stretched past 8, and Marcus was still working, fitting the last of the custom bookshelves she had specified. She stood in the doorway and asked, without quite meaning to, why he did the work himself instead of sending his crew. He looked up from the joint he was setting. "My daughter has this theory," he said, "that you can tell everything about a person by what they build." He turned back to the shelf. She thinks rooms remember who was in them. I figure if I build it myself, it'll remember someone who tried." Elena stood there for a moment longer than she could justify professionally. "How old is she?" she finally asked. 7. A small smile that changed the whole geography of his face. "Going on 45. His daughter Zoe came to the office 12 days after that when the school nurse called at 2 in the afternoon. Fever. Come now." Marcus had apologized. Alana said it was fine. He brought Zoe back anyway to finish the day's install, and Zoe had sat in the corner of the unfinished office with a sketch pad for 2 hours, drawing in absolute focused silence. Before they left, Zoe walked up to Elena's desk and held out a drawing. It was Elena's face, rendered in colored pencil with the careful attention of someone who had looked very closely. "You have a nice face," Zoe said, "but you look like you forgot something important." Elena kept the drawing in her top desk drawer. She didn't examine why. 2 weeks into the project, Marcus arrived one morning with a worn leather notebook, the kind that's been carried long enough that the corners have softened to something almost organic. He pulled it out to check something, measurements she assumed, and set it on her conference table while he spread his drawings. The embossing on the cover caught the morning light. Stanford GSB, Executive Leadership Program. Elena noticed, said nothing for a beat. "Then, you went to Stanford?" He closed the notebook with the quiet efficiency of a man who had done something without thinking and was now gently correcting the lapse. "Long time ago," he said. "Different life." She wanted to ask what that meant, something in the way he said it. Not sad, not dismissive, but settled. The way people sound when a decision has been made and made peace with itself stopped her from pressing. What Elena didn't know was that different life had made him a very wealthy man. She would find out soon enough. They all would. The Weston Capital quarterly dinner was the kind of event Elena had always attended alone. 200 guests, assigned seating, 7 courses, the usual choreography of institutional money that she navigated on autopilot. This quarter, she brought someone. She hadn't announced it. She had simply added Marcus's name to the guest list and told her events manager to seat him beside her at the head table. Cassandra, who co-chaired the events committee and reviewed every seating arrangement as a matter of professional principle, had clearly seen the addition. When Elena arrived, she found Marcus already seated at table 11, near the back of the room, between a junior analyst 4 months into his tenure and an administrative assistant from compliance. Marcus was talking pleasantly to both of them and appeared entirely untroubled. Elena was not untroubled. She walked to table 11. Said, "Cassandra has apparently rearranged some things. Come with me." She picked up his place card, carried it to the head table, and set it in the empty chair beside her own. She said nothing to Cassandra. But she felt Cassandra watching. Near the dessert course, Cassandra drifted past the head table with the casual precision of a woman who always had a reason to be exactly where she was. She paused behind Elena's shoulder. Said to the room at large, "Lovely to have new guests this quarter." Then, to Marcus, with a smile that was socially flawless, "You must tell me about what you do." Elena's been so private about everything. Marcus looked at her calmly. "I build things." "How wonderful," Cassandra said, and moved on. In the car afterward, Elena asked, "Did she say anything to you before I arrived?" "She mentioned the guest list was very carefully curated," Marcus said. "I assumed that was for my benefit. She's protective." "Of you?" he said. "Or of her idea of what you should want?" Elena looked out at the city moving past. "I'm not always sure she knows the difference." The warning came on a Tuesday, delivered with the smooth confidence of a man who believed he was performing an act of generosity. Derek Holt caught Marcus in the parking garage after the firm's board preview, a meeting Marcus had attended because Alana had asked him to present the office renovation as a showcase for the new space. He'd done it cleanly, no excess. Derek fell into step beside him, near the far end of the garage, hands in his jacket pockets, the relaxed posture of someone accustomed to difficult conversations from a position of complete comfort. "Alana is remarkable," Derek said. "I've known her 9 years. She's built something extraordinary." "She has," Marcus agreed. "People in her position have to be careful, professionally and personally." A pause, carefully timed. A misstep in personal judgment can undo 12 years of work faster than almost anything else. Marcus looked at him. "What is it you're actually asking me to do?" Derek smiled. It was a practiced smile. "I'm simply suggesting that a man who's good at reading situations probably sees what I see. That there's a natural limit here, and that recognizing that limit, respecting it, says something good about a person." "I appreciate you being direct," Marcus said. He drove home, said nothing to Elena. But that evening, Zoe looked up from her homework and studied him for a moment. "Are you okay, Daddy?" "Yeah, Bug, just thinking." "About Elena?" "Why would it be about Elena?" Zoe returned to her page. "Because you make that face." "What face?" "The one where you want something and you're already trying to talk yourself out of it." He sat down beside her at the table. "Let that land. She's the best person I've met in a very long time," he said quietly. "Then stop making that face," Zoe said, and turned the page. 3 days later, Elena was in a back corridor when she saw Marcus through the glass doors to the parking garage. He had stepped outside to take a call. She watched for 30 seconds without meaning to. He wasn't the man who measured window frames. His posture had changed entirely. Shoulders back, chin level, voice low. He held the phone the way people hold things they are in charge of. Whoever was on the other end was clearly listening, not speaking. He hung up, turned, saw her through the glass. His expression shifted back, unhurried, open, a little amused. He came inside. "Sorry, client. What kind of client calls at 7 in the evening? Ones who need things resolved quickly." She looked at him. "What is it you actually do, Marcus?" "Not the renovation." "What do you do?" He tilted his head. "I told you, I build things. That is not an answer. It's mine," he said. Then, quieter, "When the time is right, I'll tell you the rest." She thought about that for longer than she should have. The security concern memo arrived on a Thursday. Alana's compliance director forwarded it at 2:14 p.m. with a one-line note. "Wanted you to see this before it circulates further." Came from Cassandra. Alina read it standing at her desk. Cassandra had sent it to the risk committee chair, copied the compliance director and 3 board members. Subject line: Contractor Access Review. Flagged concern. The body was 4 paragraphs of careful, lawyerly language that never said anything directly accusatory, but implied, cumulatively, that Marcus Cole's extended presence in Elena's private office suite, adjacent to sensitive client data, executive meeting rooms, and the 14th floor server access points, warranted formal review of his clearance protocols. It was elegant cruelty. Everything deniable. All of it landing. Elena read it twice. Then called Catherine Wells, the risk committee chair, directly. "Catherine, hold the review until I've spoken to the committee." The meeting was at 4. Elena arrived 3 minutes early. Cassandra was already there. She looked composed, which was how Elena knew she had been expecting this. "I want to address the memo," Elena said. She looked at Cassandra last. Marcus Cole passed every security clearance at intake. He has never been on the executive floor without authorized escort. His access has been identical to every other credentialed contractor this firm has worked with in the past decade. She paused. If there is a specific, documented concern, I want it stated explicitly. Not implied. Catherine looked at Cassandra. Cassandra, specific concern? I simply thought it prudent to document. Prudent concerns have specific facts, Catherine said. She closed the folder in front of her. The concern is noted and dismissed. She looked at Elena. Thank you. Elena drove home and sat in her parking garage for a full 3 minutes before she could make herself go inside. She found Zoe's drawing in her desk drawer, the one she'd carried home without planning to, of Elena and Marcus sitting on a bench. She sat with it for a long time. Then she thought about what she was tired of not saying. What she didn't know, sitting alone in that garage, was that Cassandra had done something else. Had found the Forbes article 3 weeks ago and sat on it, still calculating how to use it as a weapon. That by morning, at the investor summit Elena had spent 8 months building toward, the truth was going to surface. And not in any way Cassandra had planned. She just knew she was done waiting. The Weston Capital Investor Summit was the largest single event Elena ran each year. 300 guests, institutional clients, media, the kind of room where reputations were quietly assessed over long stretches of time. Marcus was there because Catherine Wells had invited him. Not as Elena's guest, as himself. Elena didn't know that yet when she arrived. She didn't know that Catherine had served on a foundation board with Marcus for 4 years. Didn't know it was Catherine who had sent Marcus's firm the referral that led to the Weston Capital renovation contract in the first place. Cassandra had found all of this 3 weeks ago and had sat on it, still trying to find the angle that made it useful as an embarrassment rather than a fact. She was still calculating when Catherine crossed the room, spotted Marcus near the terrace doors, and said, warmly, immediately, in a voice that carried to the nearest tables, "Marcus, I didn't know you'd be here tonight. Elena hasn't mentioned you. She didn't know I was coming." Catherine, don't what? Catherine smiled. "Don't tell people who you are?" She looked at the nearby guests, 3 board members, 2 senior clients, and Derek Holt, who had gone perfectly still near the appetizer station. "This is Marcus Cole. He rebuilt the Meridian Foundation's investment committee after the 2019 liquidity crisis. Turned a $40 million deficit into a $22 million surplus in 18 months. Did it entirely pro bono." She looked back at him. "He also co-founded TechPeak Solutions, though I know he won't mention that himself." The conversations at the nearest tables stopped, not all at once, but in a ripple, the way it goes when something fundamental shifts in a room. Someone pulled out a phone. 2 board members turned. Derek Holt went pale. He was standing near the appetizer station with his champagne, and he went pale and did not move. Cassandra was 15 feet away. She had the Forbes article on her own phone from 3 weeks of careful calculation, and she watched the room turn toward Marcus, watched every angle she had been holding dissolve, and had nowhere to go with any of it. Marcus didn't look embarrassed. He looked like a man at peace with something that could no longer be put back. Elena was across the room. She had been reviewing remarks with the foundation director near the podium, and she heard Catherine's voice and caught the words, and then she caught Marcus's name and stood very still for 4 full seconds. Then she crossed the room. She didn't take his arm. She took his hand. In front of every client, Every board member, every person who had been calculating things about her for 12 years. "How long has Catherine known?" she asked quietly. She made the referral for the renovation contract. "She knew the whole time. She thought you'd figure it out." Elena looked at him. This man who had left $680 million behind and shown up early with his own coffee, and a daughter who drew people's faces without being asked, who had built her bookshelves himself because rooms remember who was in them. "Why didn't you tell me?" she said. "Because I needed to know you wanted the version of me that shows up with tools and a kid who talks too much. If you'd known the rest," he paused, "I'd never have known if it was real." She held his hand tighter. Cassandra stepped forward. "Elena, I think I should, Catherine," Elena said, without looking at Cassandra. "Wasn't there a compliance matter that needed to be addressed?" Catherine Wells looked at Cassandra with the measured patience of a woman who had been in institutional finance for 30 years and had long since run out of interest and wasted motion. "Yes," Catherine said. "The vendor portal used to access Mr. Cole's background information requires special authorization." "An authorization you don't hold, Cassandra." She paused. "I think we should speak privately." Tonight, the room heard. The room understood. The room turned, quietly and without drama, away from Cassandra Holt. By the following Tuesday, Cassandra Holt had resigned from her position as head of strategy at Weston Capital. The email was brief: pursuing new opportunities. No elaboration. The compliance review had confirmed what Catherine suspected: unauthorized access to a credentialing vendor portal used to pull personal background information on a private individual. In a regulated financial firm, that kind of violation resolves itself quickly and without ceremony. The board accepted the resignation the same day it arrived. Derek lost the board seat he'd been quietly pursuing for 8 months. The vote happened on Wednesday. Catherine had nominated someone else, Susan Park, Marcus's former colleague from the Meridian Foundation, who had been doing the actual work on the investment committee while Derek attended dinners. Susan won unanimously. Derek called Elena on Thursday morning. She saw his name, set the phone face down on her desk, and poured herself a second coffee. She heard about Cassandra from Catherine, held it quietly. Felt no particular satisfaction, just the particular tiredness that comes when something wrong has finally, slowly, righted itself. She spent 20 years building the right life, Elena said to Marcus that Friday evening, sitting on the counter in his kitchen while Zoe drew at the table behind them. And she lost it trying to control someone else's. Marcus handed her a mug. "That's usually how it happens." "Does it bother you what she tried to do?" He thought about it. "Honestly, it bothers me that she thought she needed to." He looked at her. "You were going to figure it out." "Was I?" "You figured out the Stanford notebook in 4 seconds." She laughed. Quietly, into the mug. 3 months passed. Zoe was in 2nd grade. She had been conducting what she privately called research on Elena for 11 weeks. Very specific questions asked at strategic moments. "Do you like cats or dogs? What's your favorite breakfast? What would you do if it snowed on your birthday? If you were any animal, would you be a cat or a dog?" Elena answered every question with complete seriousness, which Zoe had noted in a pink notebook kept under her pillow. Marcus did not ask about the research. On a Saturday morning in November, Elena came for breakfast as she had every weekend for 2 months. She brought the coffee. Marcus made the eggs. Zoe made a disaster of both and ate cereal instead. After breakfast, Marcus showed Elena something Zoe had brought home from school. A drawing. Class assignment, my family. Zoe had drawn 3 figures, Marcus, herself, and Alana, close together, with a house behind them, and what appeared to be a dog none of them owned. Alana looked at it for a long time. She set it down. "Marcus," she said. Her voice was precise, the voice she used in rooms that mattered. "I know," he said, not rushing her, just knowing. "I've run a firm worth $2 billion, she said. "I have sat across tables from people who've lost $500 million in a single session and not changed their breathing." She stopped. "I am terrified right now." He didn't say anything. He waited, the way he always waited, without pressure, without pulling. "Marry me," Alana said. The most controlled woman in every room she had ever been in, saying it plainly, quietly, without armor. "Tonight, tomorrow, whenever, but please, marry me." Marcus was quiet for a moment that lasted longer than she could easily breathe through. Then he said, "One condition." She waited. "You don't ask me." He looked toward the living room where Zoe had gone with her crayons. "You ask her. If she says yes, if she's ready, then I am too. Because the day I say yes to you, I'm saying yes forever. And she's the one who gets to decide if forever starts now." Alina felt something break open inside her that she hadn't known was sealed. She walked to the doorway of the living room. Zoe was on the floor, sorting crayons by color with the focused attention she gave everything that mattered. "Zoe," Elena said. Zoe looked up. "Would you want me to be your mom?" Her voice wasn't entirely steady. "For real. If that's something you wanted, I would want it too." Zoe stood up from the floor with the seriousness of a person who has been waiting for a specific question and is fully prepared to answer it correctly. She walked to Elena, took her face in both hands, 7 years old, small palms, completely steady. "Elena," Zoe said, "I have been doing research for 3 months." Elena's breath caught. "The answer," Zoe said, "is obviously yes." Elena didn't cry. She held that. She sat on the floor of Marcus Cole's living room, and this little girl climbed into her lap and pressed her face against her shoulder, and the most controlled woman in every room she had ever entered came completely undone. Not from loss, not from grief, from the things she had told herself for 12 years she didn't need. Marcus leaned in the doorway, 2 mugs of coffee in his hands, eyes bright, an expression wearing the look she had come to understand as the one he only used in rooms where nothing had to be performed. "So," he said. "Yes," Elena said, from somewhere in Zoe's hair. "That's a yes?" She looked up at him, eyes full of something she had no professional language for and no intention of managing. "That's a yes," she said. Zoe reached up and patted her cheek. "Good," Zoe announced. "I'll start working on the dog next."